Captain Jake Morrison stood at the bridge of the Aurora's edge, watching the massive space station grow larger on the main screen. The station looked like a giant metal flower floating in the dark void of space. Its silver petals stretched out. For miles, each one home to different alien species from across the galaxy. "Captain, we're getting clearance to dock," said Lieutenant Amy Foster from her position at the communications panel. Her young face showed both excitement and nervousness. This was her first time visiting the Galactic Council station. "Take us in steady, Ryan," Jake told his pilot. Commander Ryan Bell nodded and guided their ship toward the docking bay. The Aurora's edge was small compared to the alien vessels around them. Some ships looked like living creatures with organic curves, while others were perfect geometric shapes. That hurt to look at directly. Dr. Lisa Warren joined Jake at the front of the bridge. She carried a small device that contained Earth's complete database of human mythology. "Are you sure about this presentation, Captain? These aliens have technology we can barely understand. Will they really care about our old stories?" Jake adjusted his uniform and tried to look confident. "The Council asked for a cultural exchange. Our myths and legends are part of who we are. Maybe they'll help other species understand humans better." The truth was that Jake felt nervous too. Humans had only been part of the galactic community for 15 years. Most alien species still saw them as primitive newcomers who had barely learned to travel between stars. Earth's technology was centuries behind the advanced civilizations that ruled the galaxy. As they docked, Jake could see alien beings moving through the station's corridors. Some walked on two legs like humans, but others floated, crawled, or moved in ways that made no sense. The diversity was amazing and terrifying at the same time. "Remember," Jake told his crew, "we represent all of humanity today. Stay professional and respectful." The docking process completed with a soft thud. Jake led his team through the airlock and into the station proper. The corridor was filled with a breathable atmosphere that smelled like flowers and metal. Gravity felt slightly lighter than Earth normal. Their escort was a tall, blue-skinned humanoid with 4 arms and silver eyes. "Welcome to Council Station Harmony," the being said in perfect English. "I am Guide Kelther. Please follow me to the presentation chamber." They walked through corridors that defied physics. The walls seemed to curve upward forever, yet they were clearly walking on a flat surface. Other beings passed them in the hallways. Jake saw a creature that looked like a walking tree, another that appeared to be made of living crystal, and something that might have been a cloud of glowing gas, held together by some kind of force field. "First time seeing real aliens?" Dr. Warren whispered to Lieutenant Foster, who was staring at everything with wide eyes. "It's incredible," Amy whispered back. "The stories never prepared me for this." The presentation chamber was enormous. The ceiling stretched up into darkness, and the walls were covered in displays showing different alien homeworlds. Hundreds of beings sat in sections designed for their specific body types. Some sat in chairs like humans, others hung from the ceiling, and some floated in tanks of liquid. At the center of the chamber stood a raised platform, where speakers could address the entire assembly. Jake felt very small as he looked up at all the alien faces staring down at him. "Distinguished members of the Galactic Council," announced a mechanical voice, "we now welcome Ambassador Helen Price of Earth to present humanity's cultural offering." Ambassador Price was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and kind eyes. She had been working with aliens longer than almost any other human. She stepped onto the platform and activated her presentation device. "Honored delegates," she began, "today I wish to share with you the stories that have shaped human civilization for thousands of years. These myths and legends reveal the dreams, fears, and values of our species." The first image appeared above the platform. It showed a massive dragon breathing fire over a medieval castle. Murmurs rippled through the assembled aliens. "This is a dragon," Ambassador Price explained. "In human mythology, dragons are powerful beings that can fly and breathe fire. Some stories say they are evil monsters that destroy cities. Others say they are wise and help heroes on their quests." From the section where the Zephyrian delegation sat, High Counselor Vexthara spoke up. Her voice was like wind chimes in a storm. This creature violates basic laws of physics. How could something so large fly with such small wings? And breathing fire would damage its own respiratory system. Other aliens made sounds that Jake realized were laughter. The Nexus Collective Representative, Unit 7429, spoke in a voice like grinding metal. Analysis suggests these dragons are psychological projections of primitive fear responses. Humans created imaginary predators to explain natural disasters they could not understand. Ambassador Price continued despite the interruption. Dragons appear in many human cultures, even those that never had contact with each other. This suggests they represent something important in human psychology. The next image showed a phoenix rising from flames. The phoenix is a bird that dies by burning, then is reborn from its own ashes. It represents renewal, hope, and the cycle of life and death. More alien laughter filled the chamber. A delegate from the Crystalline Dominion created sounds like breaking glass. Biological resurrection is impossible. Even our most advanced medical technology cannot reverse cellular death. These stories show humans do not understand basic biology. Jake felt his face grow hot with embarrassment. This was not going as planned. The aliens were not showing interest in human culture. They were mocking it. Ambassador Price showed more images. Giants that could move mountains. Gods who controlled the weather. Sea monsters that could sink ships. Heroes who gained superhuman strength. Each story brought more laughter and dismissive comments from the alien delegates. Fascinating, said Quinder, an ancient being that looked like a floating jellyfish made of light. Humans appear to have evolved elaborate fantasy mechanisms to cope with their technological limitations. These stories are quite amusing. Dr. Warren stepped forward. With respect, Counselor Quinder, these stories are not just entertainment. They teach moral lessons and preserve cultural wisdom. The hero's journey, the battle between good and evil, the importance of sacrifice for others, these themes appear in every human society. UNIT 7429 processed this information with mechanical clicks. Cultural programming to maintain social order. Primitive but effective. However, believing in impossible beings suggests serious cognitive limitations. High Counselor Vexthara stood gracefully. Perhaps humans will outgrow these childish fantasies as they develop more advanced technology. Other species have abandoned similar superstitions as they joined galactic civilization. The presentation continued for another hour, but the damage was done. Every myth Ambassador Price shared was met with scientific explanations about why such things could not exist. The aliens treated human culture like a curiosity exhibit, something to study and laugh about. When the presentation ended, polite applause filled the chamber. But Jake could see the amused looks on alien faces. Several delegates were already sharing recordings of the session with their homeworlds. "Thank you, Ambassador Price," said the council speaker, a being that looked like a walking collection of floating geometric shapes. "This has been most educational. The council appreciates Earth's willingness to share its unique cultural perspectives." As they left the chamber, Jake overheard conversations in various alien languages. His translation device picked up fragments. Primitive imagination, evolutionary dead end, quite entertaining, and like watching children play pretend. Back on the Aurora's edge, the crew sat in uncomfortable silence. Their mission to gain respect for human culture had failed completely. Instead of showing humanity's wisdom and creativity, they had convinced the galaxy that humans were even more primitive than previously thought. "Well," Dr. Warren said finally, "at least we tried." Jake stared out at the stars as their ship left the station. Somewhere out there, aliens were sharing videos of humans talking about dragons and gods, laughing at Earth's ridiculous myths. Humanity's reputation in the galactic community had just taken a serious hit. If only he knew how wrong the aliens were. If only he knew that in a few months, one dying alien would change everything humans thought they knew about themselves and their place in the universe. 3 months had passed since the embarrassing presentation at the Galactic Council. Captain Jake Morrison tried to push the memory away as he worked on reports in his quarters aboard the Aurora's Edge. The ship was currently patrolling the outer edges of human space. Far from the main shipping lanes where most galactic traffic traveled, the quiet was broken by Lieutenant Amy Foster's voice over the intercom. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal. It's coming from Mining Station Eco 7 in the asteroid belt." Jake hurried to the bridge. The main screen showed a field of tumbling rocks and ice chunks that stretched for millions of miles. Hidden among the asteroids were several mining stations that extracted rare metals for Earth's growing industrial needs. "What kind of distress signal?" Jake asked as he settled into his command chair. Amy's fingers moved quickly over her control panel. "It's automated, sir. The message just says, 'Under attack, need immediate assistance,' repeating over and over." No response to our hails. Commander Ryan Bell turned from his pilot station. "Captain, I'm detecting weapon signatures near the station. Energy blasts, plasma burns on the nearby asteroids." Someone was shooting heavy weapons? Dr. Lisa Warren joined them on the bridge, carrying her medical kit. "Any signs of life on the station?" "Scanners show minimal life signs," Amy reported. "Maybe 3 or 4 people still alive, but the readings are weak." Jake made his decision quickly. "Take us in, Ryan. Battle stations, but keep weapons powered down. We don't know who attacked them or if they're still around." The Aurora's Edge moved carefully through the asteroid field. The mining station grew larger on their screens. It was a collection of metal modules connected by tubes with large mining equipment attached to nearby asteroids. Several sections showed blast damage and one entire module had been torn away. "I'm not detecting any other ships," Commander Bell reported. "Whoever did this is gone?" "Or hiding," Jake said grimly. "Amy, keep scanning for any unusual energy." "Signatures, Lisa, get ready for medical emergencies." They docked with the station's main airlock. Jake led a team consisting of Dr. Warren, Commander Bell, and 2 security officers onto the damaged station. The corridors were dark except for emergency lighting. The air smelled of smoke and something else Jake couldn't identify. "This way," Dr. Warren said, following her medical scanner toward the life signs. "They're in the central hub." They found the survivors in what had been the station's command center. 2 human miners sat against a wall, both injured but conscious. The third figure lying on the floor made Jake stop in surprise. It was a Catherian warrior, one of the most feared and respected species in the galaxy. Catherians were tall, muscular beings with tough gray skin and multiple eyes arranged around their heads. They were known as the galaxy's greatest fighters, hired as bodyguards and soldiers by many civilizations. This one was badly wounded. Dark blue blood pooled around his body, and his breathing was labored. Several of his 6 eyes were closed, and the others seemed to have trouble focusing. "His name is Zethmar," one of the miners said weakly. "He was here on some kind of business when the attack started. Fought like crazy to protect us." Dr. Warren knelt beside the dying alien and began scanning him with her medical devices. "I can try to stabilize him, but Catherian biology is very different from human. I don't know if I can help much." Jake knelt on the other side of the wounded warrior. "Zethmar, can you hear me? What happened here? Who attacked you?" "The Catherians." Remaining eyes slowly focused on Jake's face. When he spoke, his voice was a harsh whisper. "Human, you are human, yes?" "Yes, I'm Captain Jake Morrison. We're here to help." Zethmar's hand shot out with surprising speed and gripped Jake's arm. His strength was still incredible, even while dying. "Your people ... at the council. They spoke of myths." "Old stories," Jake felt confused. "Yes, we shared our mythology with the council. Why does that matter now?" The alien's eyes became more focused, as if he was fighting to stay conscious. "Listen carefully, human. Your myths ... They are not myths. The old stories your people tell ... They are real. They are memories." "I don't understand," Jake said. "What memories?" "The old ones," Zethmar whispered. "They walked among stars before any of us existed." "Before council? Before civilizations?" "Your people ... You remember them?" Dr. Warren looked up from her scanner. His vital signs are dropping fast. Whatever he wants to say, it needs to be now. Zethmar's grip on Jake's arm tightened. The Devourers. They sleep in the dark between galaxies, but they wake. They wake because your people are here in the light again. What are Devourers? Jake asked urgently. The hunger, the alien said, his voice getting weaker. They consume everything. Reality. Itself. The old ones fought them before, your ancestors. With his free hand, Zethmar reached into a pouch on his belt and pulled out a small crystalline device. It was about the size of a human hand and seemed to glow with its own inner light. Take this, star maps, the old places you must remember who you really are. He pressed the crystal into Jake's hand. The moment it touched his skin, Jake felt a strange tingling sensation, as if electricity was running through his nerves. The dragons, Zethmar whispered, the phoenix, the sea beasts, all real, all waiting. The galaxy mocked your stories, but they are the only hope now. Hope for what? Jake asked, but he could see the life fading from the alien's eyes. They return, Zethmar said with his last breath. The Devourers return, and only the children of the first civilization can stop them. The Catherian warrior went still. Dr. Warren checked her scanner and shook her head. He's gone. Jake stared down at the crystal in his hand. It felt warm and seemed to pulse with some kind of energy. Did you hear what he said? Something about myths being real, Commander Bell said. He was dying, Captain. People say strange things when they're dying, but Jake wasn't so sure. He helped Dr. Warren treat the injured miners while Commander Bell's security team examined the station. What they found was disturbing. Captain, Bell called from the mining office. You need to see this. The office had been completely destroyed. Every computer terminal was smashed. Every data storage device was missing. The attackers had been very thorough in destroying information. What were they looking for? Jake asked. Not what, Bell corrected. Who? Look at this. He showed Jake a piece of twisted metal that had once been a computer screen. Burned into the metal were strange symbols that looked like writing, but in no language Jake recognized. The miners said the attackers were searching for something specific, Bell continued. They kept asking about the one who remembers and the keeper of old knowledge. When they found Zethmar, they got very excited. Dr. Warren joined them. The miners are stable enough to transport, but Captain, I found something else. Zethmar had these symbols carved into his armor. She showed them photos of markings that matched the burned writing on the computer screen. Back aboard the Aurora's Edge, Jake sat in his quarters examining the crystal device. Lieutenant Foster had been trying to decode it for hours using the ship's computers. Any luck? Jake asked when she brought him her report. It's incredible, Captain. This crystal contains star charts for dozens of systems across the galaxy, but they're not marked with normal navigation data. Instead, each location is marked with symbols that look like... She paused, seeming embarrassed. Like what? Like creatures from human mythology. This symbol looks like a dragon. This one resembles a phoenix, and this one could be some kind of sea monster. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying these charts mark locations where mythical creatures might exist? I don't know what I'm saying, Amy admitted. But there's something else. The charts show energy signatures at each location. Very old energy signatures, like they've been there for millions of years. Jake made a decision that would change everything. Plot a course for the nearest marked location. We're going to investigate. Captain, Commander Bell said carefully, investigating strange coordinates based on the words of a dying alien might not be the best idea. Maybe not, Jake agreed. But Zethmar died trying to warn us about something. If there's even a chance? He was telling the truth. We need to know. Dr. Warren looked worried. What if we find something we're not prepared for? Jake held up the crystal, watching the light pulse within it. Then we'll deal with it. But I have a feeling that everything we thought we knew about human history is about to change. The Aurora's Edge changed course, heading for coordinates that marked the location of something the charts called the Dragon's Rest. Behind them, the damaged mining station drifted in the asteroid field, and in the darkness of space, something stirred that had been sleeping for a very long time. The galaxy was about to learn that some myths were more real than anyone had ever imagined. The Aurora's Edge dropped out of hyperspace near a dead star system that the crystal charts called the Dragon's Rest. Captain Jake Morrison stared at the main screen in disbelief. 3 planets orbited the cold, dark star, but one of them had been completely shattered. Massive chunks of rock floated in space where a world had once existed. What could destroy an entire planet like that? Lieutenant Amy Foster asked from her station. Commander Ryan Bell checked his instruments. The debris field is old, Captain, really old. My scans suggest this happened millions of years ago. Dr. Lisa Warren joined them on the bridge, carrying her analysis equipment. The energy readings from that debris field are unlike anything in our databases. It's as if the planet wasn't just destroyed, it was torn apart by forces that shouldn't exist. Jake held up the crystal device, which was now glowing much brighter than before. The charts show structures on the largest piece of debris. That's where we need to go. The Aurora's Edge moved carefully through the floating rocks. Song? Pieces were as large as mountains, tumbling slowly through space. The ship's lights revealed strange patterns on the rock surfaces, too regular to be natural. Captain, Amy said with excitement in her voice, I'm detecting artificial structures on the main fragment. They're buried deep inside the rock, but they're definitely not natural. The largest piece of the destroyed planet was the size of a small moon. Jake could see openings in the rock that led into darkness. Take us to the biggest opening, Ryan. We're going inside. Sir, we don't know if it's safe, Commander Bell warned. We won't know until we investigate, Jake replied. But something tells me this is what Zethmer wanted us to find. They landed the Aurora's Edge inside a massive cavern that had been carved from the rock. The moment they stepped outside their ship, Jake felt something strange. The air was breathable somehow, maintained by technology that still worked after millions of years. The gravity is normal too, Dr. Warren observed. Whatever built this place had artificial gravity systems that still function. They walked deeper into the cavern with flashlights cutting through the darkness. The walls were covered in smooth metal that seemed to absorb their light. As they moved forward, panels in the walls began to glow softly, as if responding to their presence. Motion sensors, Commander Bell said. This place is still active. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber. That made them all stop and stare. The ceiling stretched up so high their lights couldn't reach it. The walls were covered in carvings that seemed to move in the shifting light. These aren't just decorations, Dr. Warren said, running her hands over the carved surface. They're telling a story. Jake examined the carvings more closely. The images showed beings that looked exactly like creatures from human mythology. There were dragons with wings spread wide, breathing what looked like fire made of stars. Phoenix birds rose from the ashes of destroyed worlds. Massive sea creatures with tentacles swam through space itself. This is impossible, Amy whispered. These carvings show mythical creatures as if they were real. Maybe they were real, Jake said quietly. The crystal in his hand was pulsing with the same rhythm as the glowing panels on the walls. They moved deeper into the chamber, following the story told by the carvings. The images showed a great civilization that spanned the entire galaxy. The dragon beings seemed to be builders, creating structures that defied physics. The phoenix creatures were healers, bringing dead worlds back to life. The sea monsters traveled between dimensions, connecting distant parts of the galaxy. Look at this, Dr. Warren called from across the chamber. These humanoid figures in the center of all the carvings. They look almost like humans, but they're clearly in charge of all the other creatures. Jake studied the human-like figures. They were shown wielding power that seemed to reshape reality itself. They commanded the dragons, worked alongside the phoenix beings, and rode the great sea monsters across the stars. It's like they were gods, Amy said in wonder. Or maybe they were just very advanced, Jake suggested. But even as he said it, he felt something stirring in his memory. The figures in the carvings seemed familiar, as if he had seen them before in dreams. They continued following the story carved in stone. The images showed this ancient civilization growing across thousands of worlds. They built impossible cities that floated in space. They tamed black holes and used dying stars as power sources. They created life on dead worlds and brought peace to the galaxy, but then the carvings changed. The later images showed something terrible approaching from the dark spaces between galaxies. The carved beings looked like nothing Jake had ever seen, shapes that hurt to look at, creatures that seemed to exist in too many dimensions at once. The Devourers, Jake said, remembering Zethmar's words. This must be what he was talking about. The carvings showed a war unlike anything in galactic history. The Devourers didn't just destroy, they consumed reality itself. Entire star systems simply ceased to exist where they passed. The dragon beings breathed stellar fire at them. The phoenix creatures died and were reborn countless times in battle. The sea monsters fought in dimensions that normal beings couldn't even perceive. They're losing, Dr. Warren observed. Look at the later carvings. The Devourers are winning. The images showed the ancient civilization being slowly consumed. Worlds disappeared not just from space, but from existence itself. The great creatures of myth fell one by one, their power not enough to stop the hunger that came from beyond the galaxy. The final carvings showed the desperate last plan of the dying civilization. The human-like figures were scattering across the galaxy, hiding on primitive worlds. But they weren't just hiding, they were changing themselves, becoming smaller, weaker, more ordinary. They're becoming human, Jake realized with shock. These beings, these gods or whatever they were, they turned themselves into regular humans. But why? Amy asked. Dr. Warren pointed to a carving that showed the transformation process. Look at this. They're not just changing their bodies. They're hiding their memories, their knowledge, their power. They're storing it all in their genetic code. Jake felt a chill as he understood. They knew the Devourers would come back someday. So they hid among their own descendants, waiting for the right time to awaken. The last carving showed the Devourers leaving the galaxy, apparently satisfied that their enemies were destroyed. But the hidden humans remained, carrying within them the sleeping power of the first civilization. The myths, Jake whispered. Our myths aren't just stories. They're memories passed down through our genes. Dragon slayers, phoenix riders, heroes who fought sea monsters were remembering our ancestors. Commander Bell, who had been quiet during their exploration, finally spoke. Captain, if this is true, then every human carries the genetic memory of beings who could reshape reality. We're not just descendants of this civilization, we are this civilization just sleeping. A new section of the wall began to glow as they approached. This carving was different from the others. It showed humans in modern clothes and uniforms, clearly representing the present day. But around them, the mythical creatures were awakening. Dragons spread their wings, phoenixes rose from ashes, and sea monsters stirred in the depths of space. It's a prophecy, Dr. Warren said. Or maybe instructions. It's showing what needs to happen. Jake studied the crystal device in his hand. It was now so bright it hurt to look at directly. The Devourers are coming back. Zethmar said they're awakening because humans are in the light again, part of the galactic community. So what do we do? Amy asked. Before Jake could answer, the chamber filled with a deep humming sound. The carvings began to glow brighter, and symbols appeared that seemed to write themselves in the air above their heads. The crystal is activating something, Jake said. He could feel warmth spreading through his body where he held the device. It's responding to our presence here. The floating symbols rearranged themselves into patterns that looked like star charts. But these weren't showing locations, they were showing people. Humans scattered across the galaxy, each one marked with symbols that matched the mythical creatures from the carvings. It's a map of humans who carry specific genetic markers, Dr. Warren realized. Each person is marked with the creature type their ancestors were. Some carry dragon heritage, others phoenix, others sea monster. Jake. saw his own name appear among the floating symbols. He was marked with a symbol that looked like a combination of all the creatures, a being that could command dragons, resurrect like a phoenix, and travel dimensions like the sea monsters. "We need to find these people," Jake said. "We need to wake them up before the Devourers arrive." The humming grew louder, and suddenly the chamber was filled with images of space. But it wasn't the space they knew. This was dark space, the void between galaxies where nothing should exist. And moving through that darkness were shapes that made Jake's mind recoil, the Devourers stirring from their long sleep. "They're already coming," Amy said in horror. "They're heading straight for our galaxy." The images showed the Devourers' approach. They moved faster than light, but not through normal space. They traveled through dimensions that existed between reality, consuming everything they touched. They would reach the galaxy in months, not years. Captain Jake Morrison rushed back to the Aurora's edge with his crew, the crystal device still glowing in his hand. The knowledge he had gained from the ancient chamber filled his mind with terrible urgency. The Devourers were coming, and they had less time than anyone could imagine. "Amy, get me a direct channel to Earth Command," Jake ordered as soon as they reached the bridge. "Priority 1, emergency protocol." Lieutenant Amy Foster's fingers flew over her controls. "Channel open." "Captain, you're connected to Admiral Carter at Earth Defense Headquarters." Admiral Carter's weathered face appeared on the main screen. "Captain Morrison, you're early for your scheduled report." "What's the emergency?" "Admiral, I need you to contact the Galactic Council immediately. Tell them we have discovered an imminent threat to all civilized worlds. Something called the Devourers is approaching from dark space." The Admiral frowned. "Devourers? Captain, are you feeling all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." Before Jake could respond, Commander Ryan Bell called out from the station. "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the system. Something big is coming out of hyperspace." "Multiple contacts," Amy added, her voice tight. "With fear, sir, these readings don't match any known ship designs." The main screen switched to show the long-range sensors. At first, Jake saw nothing but empty space. Then reality seemed to ripple, like looking at the bottom of a deep pond. Dark shapes began to emerge from the ripples, ships that seemed to bend light around them. "Those aren't ships," Dr. Lisa Warren whispered. "They're something else entirely." The Devourer vessels defied description. They looked like living shadows given form, with surfaces that seemed to absorb all light that touched them. They moved in ways that hurt to watch, appearing to exist in multiple dimensions at once. "Admiral," Jake said urgently, "you're seeing this on our feed. Contact the Council now. Tell them the Devourers have arrived." Admiral Carter stared at the screen in shock. "What are those things?" "Our deep space sensors didn't detect anything approaching." "They don't travel through normal space," Jake explained. "They move between dimensions. Admiral, you need to evacuate the core worlds immediately." The lead Devourer vessel suddenly accelerated toward the nearest planet in the system. As it approached, space around the planet began to distort. The world's surface rippled like water, and then the entire planet simply vanished. "Where did it go?" Amy asked in horror. "It's gone," Dr. Warren said, checking her instruments frantically. "Not destroyed, gone, like it never existed. The gravitational signatures, the energy readings, everything. It's been completely removed from reality." Admiral Carter's face had gone pale. "Captain Morrison, get back to Earth immediately. We need to understand what we're dealing with." "No time, Admiral," Jake replied. "They move too fast. By the time we reach Earth, half the galaxy could be gone." More Devourer vessels emerged from the dark spaces between dimensions. They spread out across the galaxy with impossible speed, appearing simultaneously at dozens of star systems. Each time they approached a world, the same thing happened. Reality rippled, and the planet ceased to exist. Jake's communications panel lit up with distress calls from across the galaxy. Voices speaking in dozens of alien languages, all saying the same thing. Entire worlds were disappearing without a trace. "Captain," Amy reported, I'm receiving an emergency broadcast from the Galactic Council. They're requesting immediate assistance from all member species. Put it through. Jake ordered. High Counselor Vexthara appeared on screen, but she looked nothing like the proud, mocking figure from 3 months ago. Her normally perfect composure was shattered, her voice shaking with fear. To all ships in range of this transmission, she said. The Galactic Council declares a state of emergency. Unknown hostile forces are attacking core worlds throughout the galaxy. Our most advanced weapons have no effect on these entities. They appear to exist partially outside normal physics. The transmission was interrupted by explosions in the background. When the image cleared, Vexthara continued speaking, but now there was desperation in her voice. We are requesting immediate aid from any species with knowledge of these attackers. Our preliminary analysis suggests they are the same entities described in... She paused, clearly struggling with what she was about to say. In human mythological records. Jake felt a grim satisfaction despite the terrible situation. The same aliens who had mocked human myths were now begging for help based on those same stories. The transmission. Cut to another speaker, Unit 7429, from the Nexus Collective. The mechanical being's usual calm was replaced by something that sounded like panic. Analysis indicates conventional weapons are ineffective against these entities, Unit 7429 reported. They consume not just matter and energy, but the fundamental forces that hold reality together. Recommend immediate evacuation of all core worlds. But even as the evacuation orders went out, it was clear that nowhere was safe. The Devourers appeared at colony worlds, space stations, even deep space installations. They consumed everything they touched, leaving behind empty space where civilizations had existed for thousands of years. Captain, Dr. Warren said quietly, look at the pattern of their attacks. Jake studied the tactical display showing Devourer movements across the galaxy. At first it seemed random, but then he saw it. They weren't just attacking randomly. They were following specific routes that connected the most heavily populated star systems. They're cutting off the galactic communication networks, Jake realized. Isolating each species so they can't coordinate a defense. But that's not the worst part, Dr. Warren continued. Look at which systems they're avoiding. Jake examined the map more carefully. The Devourers were staying away from certain areas that matched the locations marked on the crystal charts. They're avoiding the ancient sites, Jake said. The places where the old civilization left their ruins. Commander Bell joined them at the tactical display. Why would they avoid those places? Because they remember, Jake said, understanding flooding through him. The Devourers fought the first civilization before. They know which places might still have active defenses. A new communication came through, this time from Quinder, the ancient jellyfish-like being who had found human myths so amusing. Ships of Earth, Quinder's message began. We require immediate consultation. Our historical databases contain references to similar entities in the oldest records of extinct civilizations. These records suggest that only the first ones possessed weapons capable of harming these creatures. Jake activated the CUM system. Quinder, this is Captain Morrison of the Aurora's Edge. We may have information about the first ones. The alien's relief was obvious even through the translation system. Captain Morrison, where are you now? Can you come to Council Station Harmony? Negative, Jake replied. Council Station is too exposed. The Devourers will target it specifically because it's the center of galactic government. We need to meet. Somewhere safer. Where do you suggest? Jake looked at the crystal device, which was now pulsing rapidly. Send coordinates to all council members. Tell them to meet us at the location I'm transmitting. And tell them to bring only their fastest ships. Time is running out. As Amy transmitted the coordinates to the ancient chamber they had just left, Jake watched the tactical display update with more disappearing worlds. The galaxy's greatest civilizations were being systematically erased from existence. Captain, Amy said, I'm getting responses from the council members. They're asking why. We're sending them to an empty star system. Tell them they'll understand when they get there, Jake replied. And Amy, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them to start evacuating the core human colonies, but have them relocate to the systems marked on these charts. He handed her the crystal device. Sir, some of these systems don't show any habitable worlds, Amy pointed out. Trust me on this, Jake said. Those systems are safer than anywhere else in the galaxy right now. Dr. Warren looked up from her analysis station. Captain, I've been studying the energy patterns from the Devourer attacks. There's something else you need to know. What is it? They're not just consuming random worlds. They're specifically targeting systems with large human populations. It's like they're hunting us. Jake felt cold understanding wash over him. They remember too. They know humans are the descendants of their old enemies. They're trying to wipe us out before we can. Awaken. The communications panel erupted with new distress calls. Earth's outer colonies were under attack. Mars base was gone. The Europa mining station had simply vanished. The Devourers were systematically destroying human civilization. Admiral Carter is trying to reach us, Amy reported. Admiral Carter's image appeared on screen, but the transmission was breaking up. Behind him, Jake could see explosions and running figures. Captain Morrison, the Admiral said, his voice cutting in and out through the static. They're attacking Earth directly. Our entire defense fleet can't even slow them down. Whatever you found out there, we need it now. The transmission cut off completely. Jake stared at the dead screen, knowing that Earth might already be gone. But then the crystal device in his hand began to burn with bright light, and he felt something awakening deep inside him, something that had been sleeping for millions of years. The Aurora's Edge arrived at the ancient chamber just as ships from across the galaxy were gathering in the dead star system. Captain Jake Morrison watched alien vessels emerge from hyperspace, the proud Zephyrian cruisers, massive Nexus Collective constructs, and even the mysterious vessels of the Ethereals, all of them coming to a place they had dismissed as empty space just days before. Captain, Lieutenant Amy Foster reported, we're receiving transmissions from over 30 different species. They're all asking for immediate guidance. Jake felt the crystal device burning in his hand. The power inside him was growing stronger with each passing moment, as if being near the ancient chamber was waking something that had slept for millions of years. Tell them to follow us into the chamber, Jake ordered. Their ship should fit in the main cavern. Commander Ryan Bell guided their ship back into the massive opening in the asteroid. Behind them came the alien fleet, their vessels looking tiny in the enormous space carved from solid rock. Dr. Lisa Warren monitored her instruments as they landed. Captain, the energy readings in here have increased by over 400% since we left. Something is definitely activating. As soon as Jake stepped off the ship, he could feel the difference. The chamber was alive with power that made his skin tingle. The wall carvings were glowing brighter than before, and new symbols were appearing, symbols that showed the current moment. The gathering of species in the ancient place. The alien representatives emerged from their ships, looking around the vast chamber in wonder and fear. High Counselor Vexthara approached Jake with steps that seemed uncertain for the first time since he had known her. Captain Morrison, she said, her Wenchime voice subdued, what is this place? Our senses cannot properly analyze the materials or energy sources. It's what remains of the first galactic civilization, Jake explained. The one your people thought was just human mythology. Quinder floated nearby, his jellyfish-like form pulsing with nervous light. The historical records speak of such places, but we believe them to be legends. How did humans discover this location? Jake held up the crystal device, which was now so bright it cast shadows in the massive chamber. A dying Catherian warrior gave this to us. He said the old stories were real, and that humanity needed to remember who we really are. Unit 7429 approached with mechanical precision, but even the Nexus Collective representatives seemed affected by the power in the chamber. Analysis indicates this facility predates all known civilizations by millions of years. However, our current Crisis requires immediate solutions, not archaeological discussion. The solutions are connected, Jake said. He walked toward the center of the chamber, where a raised platform had begun to glow. The beings who built this place were our ancestors. They fought the Devourers before and won. But they were destroyed. Vexthera pointed out. If they won, how were they defeated? They weren't defeated, Dr. Warren said, joining the group. They chose to hide. They transformed themselves into ordinary humans and scattered across the galaxy, waiting for the day when the Devourers would return. Jake stepped onto the glowing platform. The moment his feet touched the ancient metal, energy coursed through his body. He could feel something vast awakening in his mind, memories that weren't his own, knowledge of powers that human science couldn't explain. The first civilization didn't just fight the Devourers with technology, Jake said, his voice carrying new strength. They fought them with abilities that your species would call magic. Humans carry those abilities in their genes, sleeping until the time came to awaken them. Amy's voice came through the comm system from the ship. Captain, I'm receiving distress signals from across the galaxy. The Devourers have reached the core worlds. Zephyria Prime just disappeared. The Nexus homeworld is under attack. Jake closed his eyes and felt the crystal device merge with his consciousness. Suddenly, he could see across the entire galaxy, perceiving the Devourers as they consumed world after world. They moved like a plague of darkness, erasing everything they touched from existence itself. But he could also see something else, humans scattered across the galaxy, each one carrying a spark of the ancient power. Most didn't know what they carried, but a few were beginning to feel something stirring within them. I know what needs to be done, Jake said, opening his eyes. But it will require a sacrifice that not all humans will survive. What kind of sacrifice? Quinder asked. Jake walked to the control panel that had emerged from the platform. The symbols on it were familiar now, as if he had used them many times before. The genetic locks that keep human abilities dormant can be broken, but the awakening process is dangerous. Some humans will gain the power of their ancestors. Others will die from the transformation. How many will die? Dr. Warren asked quietly. Jake consulted the ancient knowledge flowing through his mind. Perhaps half, maybe more. The human body wasn't meant to contain this much power. But without the awakening, the Devourers will consume every living thing in the galaxy. Vexthera stepped forward. Captain Morrison, you're asking your entire species to risk extinction to save civilizations that mock them. Why would humans make such a sacrifice? Jake looked at the alien leader who had laughed at human myths just months before. Because that's who we are. That's who we've always been. The stories you mocked, they all teach the same lesson. Sometimes heroes have to sacrifice everything to protect others. Commander Bell approached the platform. Captain, what do you need us to do? Get back to the ship and send a galaxy-wide transmission to every human in space, Jake ordered. Tell them what's happening. Tell them about the choice they have to make. Then activate the beacon network. What beacon network? Bell asked. Jake pressed his hand against the control panel. Across the chamber, ancient systems began to activate. The wall carvings became blazing pillars of light, and energy beams shot out into space toward distant star systems. Every ancient site in the galaxy is connected, Jake explained. When I activate the awakening process from here, it will trigger awakening chambers on thousands of worlds. Any human near those sites will have the choice to transform. Amy's voice crackled through the comm again. Captain, the Devourers are moving toward this system. They'll be here in less than an hour, Jake nodded grimly. They remember this place. They know what it represents. He turned to the alien representatives. You should leave now. Take your fleets and evacuate to the galaxy's edge. If this doesn't work, you'll need to warn other galaxies about the Devourers. We're not leaving. Vexthera said firmly. Our civilizations mocked your people. The least we can do is witness your sacrifice. Jake placed his hands on the central control crystal. Power flowed through him like liquid fire, connecting him to every human in the galaxy. He could feel their confusion, their fear, but also their courage as they learned about their true heritage. Begin. The awakening, he said. Light exploded from the chamber and shot across space faster than any known form of communication. On worlds throughout the galaxy, ancient sites buried for millions of years suddenly activated. Humans working in mines, living in colonies, serving on space stations, all of them felt the call of their ancestors. Jake watched through the galactic network as humans made their choice. Some ran from the awakening sites in fear. Others approached bravely, ready to face whatever came. The transformation began immediately. On Mars, a human engineer named Ben walked into a newly activated chamber and emerged with the ability to breathe stellar fire like the dragons of old mythology. On Europa, a woman called Kate stepped into the light and gained the power to resurrect herself like a phoenix. On distant colony worlds, humans touched ancient crystals and found they could travel between dimensions like the sea monsters of legend, but Jake also felt the deaths. Humans whose bodies couldn't handle the transformation, who burned up in the awakening process. Each death hit him like a physical blow, but he forced himself to continue. "The Devourers are here," Bell reported from the ship. Jake looked up to see reality rippling at the edge of the star system. The dark ships emerged from between dimensions, moving toward the ancient chamber with obvious purpose, but now Jake wasn't afraid. He could feel awakened humans across the galaxy, each one blazing with power that had slept for millions of years. They were scared, confused, but they were also angry. The Devourers had destroyed their worlds, killed their families, threatened everything they cared about. "Time to remind the galaxy what human myths really mean," Jake said. He reached out with his awakened mind and spoke to every transformed human in the galaxy. "Children of the first civilization, the Devourers are here. Show them why our ancestors were legends." Across space, the awakened humans responded. Ben breathed fire that burned through multiple dimensions, destroying Devourer ships that existed partially outside reality. Kate died in battle and immediately rose again, leading other Phoenix humans in attacks that the Devourers couldn't predict. The sea monster descendants traveled through impossible spaces, appearing behind enemy lines to strike at the Devourers' dimensional anchors. Jake himself rose into space without a ship, his awakened form able to survive in the vacuum. He had become something beyond human, something that could command the powers of all the mythical creatures combined.